Hello, and welcome to From Scranton to the White House, Scranton Inaugurates Joe Biden. I'm Dr. Ann Sermonaro-Costanzi, Associate Professor of Modern Languages at Marywood University. Our program today is brought to you by Marywood University in partnership with the Scranton Inaugural Committee in celebration of the historic election and inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. First, it will feature a conversation with Pennsylvania Senator Bob Casey and his wife Therese, and Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman and his wife, Second Lady Giselle. Later, I'll talk with members of the Scranton community, including Scranton Mayor Paige Gebhardt-Cognetti. I hope you'll enjoy watching these conversations as much as I enjoyed participating in them. So, hello everyone. I'm happy to have you join us for this conversation of the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We're very excited to have this opportunity to talk with Pennsylvania Senator Bob Casey and his wife Therese Casey, and Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman and the Second Lady Giselle Fetterman. Welcome everyone, and thank you very much for being with us. As you know, Joe Biden hails from the city of Scranton, and I'm delighted to have the chance to talk with you as we celebrate the historic election of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who will be sworn in tomorrow. So let's jump right in. My first question is for Senator Casey and Lieutenant Governor Fetterman. What impact do you think Biden being from Pennsylvania will have on our state? Let's start with you, Senator Casey.
Well, Doctor, thanks very much. And my wife, Therese, and I are honored to be with the Fettermans to talk about Joe Biden and his administration. There's no question that when someone grows up in a state, as he did at least till the age of 10, but then kept coming back. He was back as a young man during the summers and spent a lot of time here in the state when he was United States Senator, sometimes because he was he would be invited not just to Democratic events, but events for a lot of different communities around the state. So he has a good sense of who we are, what our challenges are, and what our opportunities will be with a Biden presidency. And I think it probably helps a little bit that he carried the state. With a lot of hard work by a lot of people, he won the state. But I have no doubt that when we confront the challenges that I know the lieutenant governor's working on and public officials across the state are working on, like creating jobs and providing opportunity and making sure we have a high-skilled workforce and dealing with all of the healthcare and other challenges we have, that Joe Biden will have the best interests of our state in his heart and as part of his policy. But I look forward to working with him and his administration and the lieutenant governor and others to make sure we advance the interests of Pennsylvania.
Thank you. John, Lieutenant Governor Fetterman?
Let me just say, we respond in kind with what an honor it is to be here with the Caseys and all of you. And, you know, I would say night and day, the difference between the current president and the kind of president Joe Biden will be. That was before what happened on Wednesday, which is just unspeakable and something that none of us could have ever comprehended that it could have happened. And I am proud, along with Senator Casey, for the job that he did pushing back and defending Pennsylvania. And I know Joe Biden is going to do just that. And also, Scranton is very special to Joe Biden, not just because he was born here and grew up here, but it's also a part of the state that came in and allowed him to carry Pennsylvania too, because Scranton knows Joe's roots in Pennsylvania and in Scranton, and they return the favor. And what Joe Biden will do for Pennsylvania is everything Donald Trump didn't do for Pennsylvania. Put working families first, make sure that our cities are healthy and acknowledged and respected, but also balancing out the concerns of rural Pennsylvanians with healthcare and a higher minimum wage and infrastructure investments and just getting stuff done. not making it about dividing us based on race or party or what have you. So I need a new term. Thus far has eluded me, beyond night and day, the difference. But I'll just have to leave it at that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, as a Scranton native myself, I'm very proud of the fact that Joe Biden hails from this city, and looking forward very much to what he's going to be able to do for the state and for the city of Scranton, hopefully, too. Senator Casey, I have another follow-up for you. Given that Biden has had a long career serving in the Senate, how do you think that that experience will affect his ability to work with the current Senate to move forward his agenda?
Yeah, well, Doctor, I don't think there's any question it will help to have that experience both in the Senate for 36 years, but also interacting with members of the House of both parties over many years. Now, there's no question it's more difficult today than it might have been 15 or so years ago to get bipartisan agreement on big issues. Some of the issues the Lieutenant Governor spoke to, like jobs and healthcare. But Joe Biden is someone who not only has that experience in the Senate, but also as vice president, where he had to come to the Senate, sometimes having to deal with leaders like Mitch McConnell, who was very difficult to deal with on a lot of issues, and being able to strike deals and agreements that advance the best interests of the country. So he's someone who not only understands public officials and politicians and how to work with them, even people in the Republican Party, but I think he's also someone who doesn't make, as he often said, or I'm paraphrasing here, but doesn't make categorical judgments, meaning if someone opposes me on this issue, I can't work with them on any other issue. He's always been willing to say, okay, we didn't agree on that, but let's see if we can agree on this or try to move forward. He's very patient, and that's a rare trait for an Irish American male, but he is. I'm not sure I would be as patient with some of these characters he'll have to deal with, but he's the kind of person who will reach out his hand and try to strike a deal, and they may bite his hand, figuratively speaking, but he'll try and try and try again, because he knows that the only way that we can move forward on some of these bigger challenges the country faces, whether it's putting this virus behind us or advancing the economy that we have to build for the future. He knows that that has to be done to a certain extent in a bipartisan fashion. Now, some days he may not be able to get that agreement, and he may have to just plow forward with a Democratic majority in the House and a Democratic majority, thankfully, just recently, because of what happened in Georgia, and having that majority in the Senate. But he'll try very hard, and I think his experience is significant.
Thank you. I'm hopeful about that myself. I really do hope that that's the case moving forward. Skipping ahead a little bit to 2020, where we are right now, or in 2021, Mrs. Casey and Second Lady Fetterman, 2020 has been a particularly difficult year. And the Biden-Harris administration will face a lot of urgent challenges. As a result, particularly these challenges are related to the coronavirus pandemic. So Mrs. Casey and Second Lady Fetterman, what have you observed about the impacts of the coronavirus pandemic on our Pennsylvania families? And I'll start with you.
I guess I'll start first. Sure. The impact on our Pennsylvania families is the same as the impact all across this country and all across the world. I am highly encouraged by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris making control of this pandemic job one, because it has to be. If you don't control this pandemic, you are not going to fix any other problems in our country. And so I look around, I see what everybody else sees. There's economic devastation, there's a terrible social impact, there's an emotional impact on families. Every family is facing a different challenge. We worry about our elderly parents. We have our 20-something children have moved home because they can't actually live where they want to live. They're going to grad school, they're going to college, they're going online. Our next door neighbors are have young children. They have to teach their kids remotely. It's just everywhere you look, you see the food lines. You see families who can't make their rent, who are worried where their next paycheck comes from. And at the same time, I guess I'm trying to say every family is different. Some people are dealing with school-age children. Some families are dealing with elderly parents. Some families are dealing with the death of a loved one. Other families have lost their jobs and don't know where the next paycheck will come from. And there are also families that are dealing with every day having frontline workers. One of our daughters goes into a hospital. She wears a mask around the home. Sometimes she stays on our third floor because she's afraid she'll expose us. And we're one of the lucky ones. We're economically advantaged. The worst people impacted by that are those of lower income families. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that's going to be where they focus. They're going to help these families. They're looking for a living wage. You heard it from Lieutenant Governor Fetterman and my husband. I mean, they're focusing on very different things than the last administration focused on. And I'm hopeful that we are going to turn this around and we're going to help the people that really need to be helped and have stepped up and helped us overcome the pandemic.
Second Lady Fetterman, would you like to add to that?
Absolutely. I mean, the pandemic has shown just how much elections matter and how leadership impacts the outcome. We've seen what's happened here in this country and in my country of Brazil with similar leadership and how much they have suffered. But personally on the ground, I run the Free Store in Braddock, and what I've seen as a clear shift where families that were previously donors to the Free Store have become shoppers to the Free Store because the family dynamic and situation at home has changed. So, our food lines have made national news more than once. We had miles of families waiting for food. Many cases, families, this was their first time accessing a food bank. So the families that were already struggling are struggling so much more now, but we've created an entire new group of struggling families. And I believe in the leadership that's coming in, and I know that they're going to change the outcome for our state and for our whole country.
It's very true. It's really a time of crisis, but at the same time, hopefully, a time of change to come. And I think we're all hopeful that something more can be done to address the pandemic. There's also been a record number of people protesting in recent years in response to the Black Lives Matter movement, the Muslim ban, the Trump administration's handling of immigration. So even just 2 weeks ago, we witnessed unprecedented insurrection in the United States Capitol. So Lieutenant and Mrs. Fetterman, what initiatives and reforms do you hope the Biden administration will implement to promote equal justice for all and foster unity within our divided nation? Can you comment on that?
Ms. Casey really, I think, nailed it. It's like, unless you do something about the virus first, there's nothing else really matters as much. I mean, Joe Biden understands after 4 years of having President Trump have us foment each other being the enemy, that the real enemy is the virus. I mean, we have to agree with that first and foremost. We as a nation were arguing over masks. We as a nation were arguing over, hey, is it okay to get inside with 100 people? I mean, like, these are things that we shouldn't have been arguing about from the beginning. And how fewer empty chairs at this Thanksgiving or these holiday where there have been if we'd have been at that place. Joe Biden is going to crush the virus, distribute the vaccine, and lead with science and experts and not whatever makes sense to the lunatic fringe. He is going to get it done because really nothing else matters unless we can bring this awful pandemic to heel. We will have lost close to 400,000 fellow Americans by the end of this month. And Joe Biden is going to save, by just virtue of him being elected, hundreds of thousands of lives because he will make that the priority when he takes office, as opposed to the president.
Mhm.
And, there's no doubt the president sets the tone in this country, and to have someone leading with compassion, I mean, think about what a change that's going to be. I'm looking forward to watching conferences and being optimistic and looking forward to the future. And I think that's going to be the first change that we're going to see. We're going to see someone who's kind and accountable, leading with compassion.
Senator and Mrs. Casey, if you'd like to add anything to that, please feel free.
Completely agree.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
She is,
If you'd like.
I know, I'm sorry, you were cutting out. You were
No.
cutting.
Oh.
She said, can you add anything to
Oh.
that?
No, I can't. There's no question that I think the character of the incoming president and vice president is going to matter as well. The character of a public official matters, in addition to their ideas and their policies. And we're going to have two people coming in to office, and with them an administration that has the character and has the compassion and experience to move the country forward. And the lieutenant governor knows our state well. He knows that in a state like ours, we're going to be facing a lot of the challenges that you've outlined that confront the nation as well, whether it's the economic challenge, putting the virus behind us, dealing with healthcare issues, climate change, finally a reckoning on race that it's long overdue. And I don't think Joe Biden or Kamala Harris will shy away from trying to tackle any of these problems that confront the American people.
I'm just looking forward to somebody who will tell the truth. I mean,
Right.
I really want to be able to turn on the television and know that I'm getting a reality check. And I may not always agree with him, but I'll know he'll always tell me the truth.
Yep.
Very important. And you mentioned, Senator Casey, climate change, which happens to be the topic of the next question. Joe Biden has called climate change both an existential threat and an opportunity to revitalize the economy through creation of high-quality jobs and innovation. Lieutenant Governor Fetterman, how would his plans help the people of Pennsylvania?
Senator?
Trustee first.
Oh, well.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think the question answers the question that you asked, answers the question. He understands that you need to revitalize the economy, and what a great way to do it through this green energy revolution. But Joe Biden also understands that it's going to require a transition too, and he has always held firm to the energy history and the jobs in Pennsylvania, and understands that it's a transition. He knows what true north is in terms of getting to be a carbon neutral country. He understands that we need clean energy jobs. He understands that climate change is a scientific fact and a reality, and we must act. But he also understands that the way to get there is through collaboration and bipartisanship, and realizing that this is a process that isn't going to occur in a year or two, that it's charting the course for 10, 15, 20 years from now. We will look back and be grateful for the progress that we will have made, the economy that we will have restored, but most importantly, the future that we have secured for our children and grandchildren by addressing the climate crisis and our rampant use of expending carbon dioxide into the atmosphere.
Senator Casey, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think the lieutenant governor has it right. It's interesting in light of what he said and what Therese mentioned about telling the truth. I think just like Joe Biden has told the truth to the American people as a candidate, now as president-elect, and ultimately as president about the virus, telling people what they need to hear, which is the truth, not trying to pretend a problem doesn't exist. I think he'll approach climate change the same way. So I think folks, whether they live in Braddock or Scranton, understand that this is a challenge, that climate change is real. It's caused by human activity. It's a threat to human life, and we got to do something about it. He's not going to pass it off to the next president. and just try to avoid it because it's a difficult issue. He's got a plan, a strategy to deal with it, but as the Lieutenant Governor said, he knows that tackling climate change isn't a choice between the challenge presented and the jobs we can create. We can do both. And I think most Americans know that this is both a challenge and an opportunity to create a lot of jobs and also do the right thing for our planet and our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, because that's what Joe Biden has always focused on, the future.
Very true. Absolutely. The next question is for Mrs. Casey and Mrs. Fetterman. Political spouses play an important role. Since the historic election of Kamala Harris as vice president, we will for the first time have a second gentleman. We also have seen some sexist responses. For example, including Dr. Jill Biden's use of her title doctor as she assumes her role as First Lady. From your perspective as political spouses, could you give us some insight into your roles and what advice you might have for
Well, I can talk from the
Harris?
I actually have no role, title. I have no staff. I have no budget. So it's basically, first of all, supporting my husband. I oftentimes I can be very vocal about my opinions, but he's the office holder. And if it's appropriate for me to say things, I will do it. But my support is of him. I am fully aware that I don't have a role at the and I have to be careful about what I say and do sometimes. And I am aware of that, but I do support him. I have Senate spouses actually have we meet often, even during the pandemic. We've had some Zoom calls. We work together. We actually don't talk politics. And it's been very difficult at times not to talk politics. So I've come to know spouses on the other side, regardless of what their spouse's point of view is. I know a few. We're actually pretty friendly with the Klobuchars. So there's a male spouse that's a very good friend of mine, and I see a different perspective from him. But we try to do, or I try to do. I get a lot of invitations. I go through them myself. I have causes that I am committed to that have come from sometimes before he was in office. He's been in office for a while. We have a 24-year-old daughter. He ran when I was pregnant with her. She's our youngest. So it's been a mix of federal and state offices. So I try to help where I can. I support him. We travel. We've traveled internationally. We've traveled with other members of the Senate on both sides to build rapport, to represent the United States. I do whatever I can, whenever I can. And I knew Jill Biden, Dr. Biden, which I'm going to continue to call her Dr. Biden because she worked hard for the 2 master's degrees and the doctorate that she got. So it's just outrageous that we even talk about having her use her title and continue to do the work that she loves to do. She's been an educator her whole life, and she should be able to continue to do that. So I knew her as a Senate spouse. So we have activities we do together, public service things we do together. And when she became second lady with Michelle Obama, there was such a great elevation of what was expected of us. We have such privilege. I have such privilege as a Senate spouse. I'm invited to the White House. We're invited to embassies. We get to travel the world, and we should give back. I mean, there are some that don't feel that way, but Michelle Obama, when we were invited to an event that was very special, she made us do service work, invited us to do service work. Not everybody took her up on it. I always did. We're in food pantries. We help military families. And it was really important to be able to do that. And Jill was at her side, making sure that we were helping the people who really needed to be helped. We were in schools, and I could go on and on about the service they did. I know when she becomes First Lady, she's going to continue the work that she did with Michelle Obama, and she's going to elevate it. And I have often said to people, the role of First Lady is the most powerful unpaid position in the world. And to see that office not used has been frustrating to me. For the last 4 years, I have not been asked once to do a single service project in our nation's capital or anywhere in this country from our First Lady. And I know that's probably not the thing to say right now, but it's an important thing to understand that how important the First Lady's role is. And I have no doubt that Dr. Jill Biden will elevate that role to where it needs to be and really help the people that need to be helped.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And also,
Can I just say first,
Sure.
She's everyone's favorite, so I don't even matter, whether it's parents. So she's already my boss regardless.
they say I am the brains of the operation, and he is just the arm candy.
Yeah, I'm the arm candy.
But no, I agree. I also have no staff or no official role, but it is this challenge and this opportunity, like the senator said, to take this position and kind of make it our own. So I've been able to continue the work that I've done previously and kind of on a slightly bigger platform. But to have someone now in this role of First Lady who, really does care. And I just think of that outfit that said, I really don't care, right? We have Dr. Joe Biden who really cares. It's going to be such a gift, such a shift on what we've seen in the previous 4 years. It's going to bring us back to Michelle Obama days and days that we admired, right, and learned from and looked forward to. So I'm really looking forward to that shift. Spouses no doubt play a huge role in so much. So thank you for your work all these years, and I feel all the hard days just like you do. So we personally know what it's like to be a spouse.
I do.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that answer and for all of your contribution to it. I appreciate that. So as you know, I'm coming to you today from Marywood University, a private Catholic liberal arts institution in Scranton. It's just down the road from Joe Biden's childhood home. So obviously issues related to education and in particular higher education are very important to our community. Senator Casey, can you talk a little bit about how you will work with the Biden-Harris administration to advance educational opportunities for all of our Pennsylvania students?
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about, obviously, but you could boil it down into just 2 words: Pell Grants. That's one priority, that we've got to continue to support programs that help young people be able to finance, or at least help to finance their higher education. And a lot of young people who come from communities of color or come from a lower income background sometimes can't afford to have the opportunity of higher education because they don't get the help they need. So Pell Grants and student loans and assistance to students, I think, is going to be a huge priority for President Biden, just as it was when he was vice president. President Obama made Pell Grants a major priority in his 8 years as president. And I know Kamala Harris shares that as well. The other thing I'd mention is that the United States Senate last year did not reauthorize the Higher Education Act. We've got to do that. And the good news is that you'll have both a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate, where I think we can get a reauthorization of that legislation, those programs reauthorized. And I think Joe Biden's team will work closely with us in doing that. And he's going to have a good team at the Department of Education. So it's going to be an area of significant priority, I think, for the new administration.
Thank you. So we're running out of time. So for our last question, I'd just like to ask each of you in just a few words or even one word, what can the people of Scranton and Pennsylvania expect from our new president and vice president? Mrs. Fetterman, maybe we'll start with you.
I think it's going to be a complete culture shift. We are going to have someone who like Teresa said, can trust, can find comfort in. You know, I can't tell you how many press conferences were just anxiety attacks for me. Like I need that voice comforting me, who's telling us that we're going to make it through this. We're going to make it to the other side. We're going to be together through that. That alone, it's going to impact our mental health, our communities. You know, it's been a really hard past 4 years, I think, for everyone. And I'm just honestly looking forward to turning on the TV and thinking, we're going to make this. America's back, and we're gonna get through this together. Whatever it is, we're going to get through it together.
Great. Lieutenant Governor?
For the last 4 years, we've had a deficit of decency in the White House. And on day one, Joe Biden's going to close that gap, and then he's going to pin the needle on the decency side. You know, he ran to restore the soul of America. Well, he did that. And when you saw what happened earlier in the month, you know, in Washington, you know, everyone has outrage fatigue, but even that broke through. And we realized that we're on a dangerous, dangerous course. And Joe Biden's presidency is going to allow us a gift that we haven't had for the last 4 years. We can ignore the president some days. We don't have to wonder, what is this person going to tweet out? What is this person going to say or do next? Who, you know, what enemy overseas is he going to court and cultivate? We can just go on with our lives because we know we don't have to have our eye on the ball at all times, because Joe and Kamala will have their eye on the ball at all times.
Thank you. Senator and Mrs. Casey?
What can we add?
Therese.
I know, I'm not sure we can add to that. That was well said. I mean, we are looking at a new reality starting January 20th. And I am so looking forward to not having to wake up and wonder what the state of the world is today. And also this virus, our current president has made no attempt to control this virus. I mean, all he had to do is say, wear a mask. We're going to have somebody on January 20th who's going to ask us to wear a mask for 100 days. And I think most of the country is going to comply with that, because people who didn't believe this was happening, they're now seeing it in their own communities. And this never should have happened. Never should have happened. So I'm looking forward to a brighter day ahead of us.
Yeah, I think the theme of Joe Biden's campaign will be I think the foundation of his administration, when he talked about we need to build back, but build back better. And that applies not just to the economy and getting people back to work, but it also means having opportunities for people that didn't have it before. So that alone, in terms of an agenda for the American people, we're going to have the benefit of going forward. But I have to say as well, similar to what Lieutenant Governor Fetterman said, we're going to have someone not just with the experience to govern and the experience to bring people together to solve big problems, whether it's climate change or healthcare or building the economy back better. But it's also going to be a leader who has not just experience, but empathy, understands what people are up against, not only in a pandemic, a public health crisis, but also when they lose their job, when their small business is adversely impacted. Joe Biden understands, unfortunately, suffering, because he suffered a lot in his own family. And he also understands the heart and the soul of the country. So that will be a big change, to have a president who has both experience and empathy and a strategy to lift up a lot of our communities. So it's an administration we can look forward to, we can work with, and also an administration that will respect us and respect the rule of law.
Thank you so very much. And thank you to all of you for taking the time to join us in this conversation. You've offered us some great insights into what the future might hold under a Biden-Harris administration. And it's really been just a delightful, enjoyable conversation. And it's wonderful to meet all of you. And I thank you for all of your work on behalf of all of our Pennsylvania citizens. Special thanks to Pennsylvania Senator Bob Casey and his wife, Therese, and Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman and Second Lady Giselle Fetterman for talking with me. I also had a chance to sit down with Scranton's mayor, Paige Gebhardt-Cognetti. Hello, Mayor Cognetti. Thanks so much for making the time in your busy schedule today to talk with us about President-elect Biden's inauguration. As you know, his election has put Scranton in the spotlight given his roots in the area. Lots of people are very excited about the inauguration. Why are you excited about a Biden-Harris administration, and what do you think it will mean for the city of Scranton?
It's tremendously exciting for the city of Scranton that tomorrow a kid from Scranton will be sworn in as president of the United States. It shows every kid in Scranton now, everybody who's from here, that you really can be whatever you want to be. And it's just exciting in so many ways, but it really does show that Scranton is a place that really nurtures its own. It's a nurturing community. It's full of families that have been here for generations that look out for each other and that can foster an environment to, for people to grow and feel confident as they go out into the world. And I'm thrilled for President-elect Biden and his family. I'm thrilled for the city. We really can take advantage, I think, in these next 4 years of being on the map again in a really forward-looking way. When we look back on Joe Biden being from Scranton, we're looking in the past, but as we look to him taking office tomorrow, this is really about the future. This is about bringing new growth to Scranton, highlighting the future that we have ahead, built on the great past that we have. And it's just a thrill in every way. And it's also really exciting to have Kamala Harris be getting sworn in as vice president. We're partnering with the city of Oakland as her hometown. We have some neat things that we're going to hope to do in the next 4 years, some youth exchanges, and really highlighting the differences and the similarities in our communities.
That's wonderful. And that will touch on a number of, or at least one other question I think that we'll be asking you. So we'll be looking forward to hearing more about that. And so you've been in office now for a year. So you've had a chance to see up close the opportunities and the challenges that Scranton faces. How does Biden's agenda align with your own plans for the city of Scranton?
So we've already had calls with the incoming White House staff as the city of Scranton and cities across America. The Biden-Harris administration will be very focused on cities like ours. It's really part, I think, of what they're going to be looking at for health, for economic opportunity. They're really looking at the trends. They're looking at infrastructure. They're trying to see what we need from the ground up, what we need to grow. And it's just wonderful to already be involved in those conversations in a fulsome way with that incoming White House staff. And we'll be really looking forward to working with them on a range of things, like I said, from housing to infrastructure to jobs.
That sounds really exciting, and it's good to hear. Absolutely. Another topic for conversation: after recent events at the Capitol, the president-elect has called us to come together as a nation and reminded us that far more unites us than divides us. Can you speak a little bit about how that vision is grounded in the Scranton values that Joe Biden often talks about?
Sure. I was on my weekly town hall, and I said as much, that the vast majority of the 330 million Americans out there agree much more than we disagree. The goal of nearly everyone is to have a safe place for themselves and for their families, and a place to call home, a family to love, friends to love, a fulfilling career, and food on the table. What we all want is it shouldn't be that hard. I don't think it's that different. I think that Joe Biden embodies that. I think we know from, driving past his house on North Washington Avenue. I know up at Marywood, you guys do that every day. It's a modest family home, and he came from a place where the news at the dinner table wasn't always easy. His dad, lost a job and they had to move. So I think that he is rooted in what most families go through, the ups and downs, the economic hardships. I think that shows in the empathy that he shows and in the policies that he's put forward in his career and as vice president. I think he'll continue that as the president. And it really is going to continue to show in spades that Scranton is the type of place that most people come from. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that and celebrate that here and try to make sure that we're doing the things in Scranton now. That's my job, is to make sure that we're doing these things in Scranton now to foster that environment, to make sure everybody does have stability, food on the table, a shelter over their heads. And more. So it's a challenge, but it's one that I invite, and I'm so happy that we will have partners in the White House, in Joe Biden, in Kamala Harris, in their administration to help walk with us as a city.
Yes, yes, I certainly share those same hopes, absolutely. Finally, you're the first female mayor of the city of Scranton. Kamala Harris will be sworn in as the first female vice president. Is the future female? How do you think politics will be influenced by more female leaders? And why is it so important to have this kind of representation?
Yeah, well, we've made strides, and I have to say that the generations of women before me really broke a lot of doors down, and I'm the product of a generation that had a lot of doors open. So I always have to acknowledge the women that came before me to help make it possible for a woman to be elected as vice president, for a woman to be elected to mayor of the city of Scranton. It's a long road. We've got a ways to go, certainly. It can be challenging at times, but what I love about this opportunity for me is I get to live the change. And when I go home to my daughter at night, I know that even though sometimes things might be challenging on my end, by the time she gets to the point in her career where she's trying to go up the ladder, she's in a place where it's normal and expected that women will always have a seat at the table, and not just one, but an equal number of seats at the table. So it's a long way to go, but we really have come so far. Seeing Kamala Harris be sworn in tomorrow as vice president is going to be just electrifying, I think, for most women in the nation. Even if, I think it's one of those things, even if you didn't vote for them, I hope that people realize what an amazing thing it is. Not only are we swearing in the first woman into the White House, but it's the first Black woman, the first South Asian woman. And it's just, it truly is wonderful. And I hope that it's the beginning of a long line of women in the White House.
I couldn't agree more. I really appreciate you on that. And it's really been a wonderful chance to talk with you, Mayor Cognetti. I really appreciate it. Thank you again for taking the time to be with us today. And also, please know that we thank you also for the service that you're doing for the city of Scranton. And we wish you very good luck in the days to come. Thanks, Mayor Cognetti. Next, I spoke with a group of women who, in interesting and diverse ways, represent the Scranton community. Joining me for a conversation about Biden's road from Scranton to the White House is Deputy National Finance Chair for the Democratic National Committee and lifelong resident of Scranton, Virginia McGregor, the HR Director of Scranton City Hall, Ms. Amber Viola, who is also a Marywood University graduate and Navy veteran, and Marywood Student Government Association President, Alexis Pallas. Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to have you join in this conversation this morning for a conversation about the celebration of President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. I'm especially excited to talk to all of you in this group because you're all representing our great community of Scranton, where you know that is the hometown of President-elect Biden. He'll take the oath of office tomorrow. So we've seen a lot of buzz in the Scranton area since President-elect Joe Biden announced his candidacy. As you know, he grew up just down the street from here, where I am located at Marywood University. So we're all very excited about that and have been for quite a while. So Mrs. McGregor, I'd like to start with you. Like Joe and like myself, you're a native of the Scranton area. But unlike Joe, you've lived here your entire life. How has Scranton changed, do you think, in the years since Joe Biden grew up here? And how might it change growing forward into the next 4 years under the Biden-Harris administration?
Well, thanks, Ann. And I'm just so happy to be here today talking about Scranton and talking about Joe Biden. They're my two favorite subjects. My family's lived on North Washington Avenue for almost 100 years. My husband, Bob, and I raised our 6 children just a few blocks from Joe's home. So I'd like to start with what's the same. It's still a wonderful place to raise a family. It's a strong community. And you know when you care about your neighbors. Children walk to school and to their friends' houses. There are plenty of places to play. It's safe, and it's a connected community. You know, Joe moved to a community in Delaware that wasn't all that different from the Scranton he grew up in. But what's changed are the economic challenges that people face. You know, Joe knows that people had to leave the area in increasing numbers to find work. And he understands the hardship of that, since his dad had to do the same. We have a business, McGregor Industries, that's been around for more than 100 years. And all of our work used to be in northeastern Pennsylvania. Today, our work is in Boston and Philadelphia and Detroit. Joe came to McGregor Industries this summer to unveil his cornerstone campaign initiative, Build Back Better, because of his personal experiences growing up in this area. I know that he and the whole administration wants to create more family-sustaining jobs and to rebuild the middle class. And I know over the next 4 years that we're going to see a lot more jobs in NEPA, and that the Biden administration is going to create new opportunities and hopefully expand the middle class and help people have a sense of pride in the work they do to take care of their families.
Wonderful. I couldn't agree more. That's a wonderful sentiment. And it's interesting to hear you talk about my experience as well growing up in the Scranton area.
Yeah.
I've seen much of what you've seen, and I've grown up with much of what you've grown up with. The next question is for Ms. Viola. You were active working with the Biden-Harris campaign through PA Vets for Biden and as a DNC delegate. As such, you spent a lot of time talking with people about what made Biden and Harris strong candidates. What were some of the most important things you learned from that experience? And what kind of leaders do you think President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris will be?
I did have the opportunity to talk to so many people in our area who were either for Biden or weren't, but I got to talk to them about things that they really liked about him. And one of the biggest things was his resilience and how he, through all the challenges that he faced in his life, he still persevered and still continued to press on. So many of us here, whether we're facing economic challenges or just, challenges with our families and things that are going on, you can look to somebody like that and see that they just kept going when, it looked like they had nothing left. And that he just kept pushing through. And I think it's something that really gave people around this area a sense of hope and a sense of pride that, an NAPA son is so strong and willing to just keep persevering through all kinds of challenges. Obviously this wasn't the first time that he ran for president, and people really, I don't want to say like that fact, but they really respected that fact that he kept going because he really wanted to make things better. And as far as Kamala Harris, a lot of the people I talked to are so proud just to have a woman of color, a woman who graduated from a HBCU and who can represent a lot of the minorities and females here in the area. Scranton has a minority population that a lot of people may not realize or may not see all the time. And so it's very nice for people in this area to kind of feel seen and to feel like, we have somebody who looks like us, and we can tell our daughters and our sons that, one day, not only could you be president because you're here in Scranton and we have somebody from Scranton, but you can also reach for the stars and be, vice president or move on to president, whenever, as a person of color. So that was definitely something that, people really were looking forward to. And I will say that honestly, on both sides of the aisle, people seem to really respect Joe Biden. And it was something that was very, very comforting to me and something that was very unexpected for me to learn.
Wonderful. Those are really important sentiments. Thank you for sharing them and your experience and for your hard work on the campaign.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Pallas, you are Marywood Student Government Association president, and you had a front row seat at the Biden rally when he came to speak here in Scranton in September. A post-election analysis by the Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement at Tufts University found that youth voter turnout was up 8% this year. The New York Times estimated that 62% of the youth vote went for Joe Biden. What do you think inspired young voters to support the Biden-Harris ticket during this election?
I believe that the young voters' just aspirations and the want for change align more with the Biden-Harris ticket. I think that young people saw more promise and change regarding topics that are important to them, topics like environmental justice, gender and racial equality, student debt, taxation. So along with all of those, I do also think that young people as a whole, or the younger generation, feels if that topics that are important to us aren't viewed as important by other older generations. But I think there was a change with the Biden-Harris campaign because I think the younger generation felt more recognized or just heard by them. And I think that also played a huge role into it as well.
Wonderful. I having a daughter of your age, I totally understand what you're saying. There's a lot of passion for the issues that you mentioned. Mrs. McGregor, you were one of the 20 chosen Electoral College electors to cast their vote for President Biden on December 11th. Can you tell us a little bit of what that experience was like for you?
Well, it was a phenomenal experience. You know, I was honored to be one of the 20 electors to represent our state because the eyes of the country were on us, right? And I think that everyone breathed a sigh of relief once it was done. I know that I did. Because the votes were cast and the ballots were counted and the court cases dismissed all across the country. And we were voting in unison, all the states at the same time to vote as electors for who the states had elected. And the process had tremendous significance this year because a lot of the falsehoods that surrounded the election. And being from Scranton and knowing the Bidens, I understood how important it was to represent the city. You know, everybody knows that Joe loves Scranton, but I personally know how much he wanted to make sure that it was an integral part of his campaign and the process of certifying his win. You know, I had been fully engaged in Hillary Clinton's campaign, and the outcome was heartbreaking for me. Then I got involved with the DNC because I really didn't approve of the way that Trump was running things. My role at the DNC and on the Biden-Harris campaign was a national position. I traveled around the country getting people from every state engaged and involved. And the electoral college process seemed to have been something that brought everybody together and was the final act that certified the election before it went to Washington this week. You know, the process this year was unique because of the pandemic, but it was also a way of honoring all the hardworking men and women who oversaw the elections and all our nation's citizens who stood in line for hours to cast their vote masked up to make sure their votes were counted. So being an member of the Electoral College and certifying the win was for all of them and for all of us. It was just something that I'll be able to tell my grandchildren about.
That's how wonderful, really. The other follow-up I had for you, Mrs. McGregor, was that you were part of the group that had a chance to take part in renaming part of North Washington Avenue as Joe Biden Way, shortly after his historic win. Why did the city decide to make that change, and what do you think it signals for the city of Scranton?
Well, you know, Amber was there with me as well, and you know, I said to the people that were there that day, you know, we haven't had an event like this to celebrate, and we almost didn't know what to do. So when Mayor Cognetti, you know, announced that she was doing that, I was thrilled because, you know, we call Joe our scrappy Scrantonian because he really embodies the grip and the determination of our city. And we have staying power as individuals and as family and businesses. And I want to be able to point to that sign when I'm taking my grandchildren who live on North Washington Avenue to the Green Ridge Little League, that, you know, who Joe Biden is and what he represents and what he represented to Scranton. So it's just, it gives everybody a warm feeling when they drive by and see the sign.
Wonderful. Ms. Viola, I'm sorry, I keep mispronouncing.
It's okay.
Viola, would you like to add a little?
I loved it. Yeah, it was beautiful, and I was so happy to be able to be a part of it. And also just because it's so close to Marywood too, and as a Marywood grad, you know, it's like I come over there and I do have warm, fuzzy feelings, and it just makes you proud to say, like, you know, he's from here. This is where he lived, and now we have that little piece of history. And I was very happy that the mayor decided to do that, and it was wonderful. The amount of people that kind of came together and watched it and things like that. It was a great moment.
Wonderful. I'm very proud of it myself. Lastly, I'd like to go around and offer everyone a chance to weigh in with just a few sentences on our next question. Throughout the campaign, President-elect Biden has consistently talked about the ways Scranton has influenced his values. In your mind, what are Scranton's most important values? I'll start with you, Mrs. McGregor.
Well, you know, we like to say in Scranton that when anybody falls, everybody stops and helps get them back up again. And I think Joe Biden, from his years living in Scranton and the fact he still has family here, knows that nobody can do this alone, and there's strength in numbers. And in being part of a community where friends are like family, and then family have been friends for generations, is something really special about Scranton. In a community like this, Joe knows that joys are multiplied and sorrows divided. So Joe's faith, which began growing up in Greenridge, surrounded by Marywood and the sisters, I think calls him to put others first and to be of service to others. And he knows that when you put other people first, we all win.
Okay, Alexis, let's move to you. How would you respond to that?
I would say something kind of similar, actually. You know, my short 4 years that I've spent here in Scranton at Marywood, I've really just grown to see the sense of community that is within the city. You know, from where my local hometown, I didn't really have that connection around. So it was really nice and warm just to see that sense of community around. And I would say just a homegrown pride as well. I feel like the city altogether, especially when times started to get rough here going towards the election, everyone really just banded together. And I think it's just, you know, just a sense of pride that the city has for everyone who is here is really just touching.
Wonderful. And lastly, Ms. Viola?
I was gone. I went and joined the Navy. So I was away for 8 years, and then I moved back. And I just remember being gone, all I wanted to do was come back home. You know, I lived all over the world, and there was no place that was like, you know, northeastern Pennsylvania, where, you know, I do know my neighbors, I do talk to them, you know, I know my garbage men, you know, I wave to them, you know, you see people down the street, and you go to the same grocery stores, and you go to the same gas stations, and, you know, you're able to know people by name and speak to them. And it's a very warm sense of community, and you can't do things alone. And when I came back, I knew that I would probably need a little bit of help, you know, being a single mother, trying to go to Marywood and stuff like that. And I just felt so many people around me, and so kind and so helpful and so generous. And so when I hear people talk about Scranton, or, you know, even when I was gone, I would get that feeling again of like that sense of family and that sense of home. And I think that kind of why Joe Biden talks about Scranton so much and why he missed it so much. And I can definitely identify with that feeling of this is home. And when you're gone, you kind of long to be back here. So it's a beautiful place to be in it. And we definitely have a lot of Scranton pride.
Yes, as someone who spent a lot of time away from this area, I also share that feeling of what it's like to come back here after many years. And you're absolutely right. And thank you for your service.
Thank you.
We're running out of time, so this will be our last question. But in just a single word, what are you most looking forward to once Biden and Harris take office? I'll start with Mrs. McGregor.
Single word is always hard for me, but I would say integrity.
Ms. Viola?
Transparency.
Ms. Ballas?
Decency.
I'm grateful to Mrs. McGregor, Ms. Viola, Ms. Pallas, and all of our guests for sharing their insights with me. You can watch Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's inauguration tomorrow, January 20th, live from the United States Capitol at noon on most major news networks. Special thanks to the Scranton Inaugural Committee and Marywood University for making this program possible. And thank you for tuning in.